Good morning. So today in this lecture, we would start talking about multi-carrier modulation. And in the previous set of videos, we have looked at how bad the wireless channel is, what is the performance of digital modulation schemes under a fading scenario, how can you combat fading, making use of diversity combining techniques or MIMO, multiple input, multiple output systems. But we haven't talked about can whether or not we can combat inter-symbol interference. If you recall, in chapter 6 towards the very end, we said that inter-symbol interference also limits your data rate. Because of the inter-symbol interference, you get to irreducible error flows, and the only way to get out of those irreducible error flows is that you reduce your data rate, and that is of course not acceptable in today's age. So how can we combat interference or inter-symbol interference? That is the key topic. So the multi-carrier modulation is one of the ways to combat inter-symbol interference. Recall from chapter 2 that you would get inter-symbol interference or ISI if your channel delay spread is greater than your symbol interval. That means if you have a symbol interval Ts and if your channel delay spread is more than the symbol interval, then you would get what is called the inter-symbol interference. That means if your sigma Tm, if your delay spread is greater than Ts, in other words, if you take the reciprocal of both sides, 1 over sigma Tm is less than 1 over Ts. In other words, this is related to your coherence bandwidth of the channel. So if your coherence bandwidth of the channel is less than the signal bandwidth, then you would get inter-symbol interference. In other words, uh, in order to mitigate inter-symbol interference, so this would cause inter-symbol interference. Now, if you don't want to have your inter-symbol interference for no ISI, you want your symbol signal bandwidth to be less than the coherence bandwidth of the channel. So that is the key idea behind multi-carrier modulation. So you want your symbol bandwidth to be less than the coherence bandwidth, and if you want to use the entire bandwidth, if it is not possible, because bandwidth is directly related to the data rate. The more bandwidth you use, the higher data rate you can transmit. So if you want to carry out a high data rate transmission, that means you want to operate in a high bandwidth regime and still want no ISI. What can you do about this? For example, if you have this large bandwidth that you want to leverage to transmit a high data rate transmission, and this bandwidth is so large that this would definitely call for inter-symbol interference. So there can be two ways you can handle this scenario. One way is that you use entire bandwidth PS and apply what are called the equalization at the receiving end. So equalization has been a popular topic and was used a lot in earlier systems. Even today's system make use of some sort of equalization as well. So, but you would require a very complex system for your system to determine the equalization gain, because that would change on the runtime. As the channel changes, your equalizer's gains would keep on changing. So that makes the system complex, right? So if you apply equalization at the receiver, that makes the system complex. You require what is called the channel side information, right? And even with the channel side information, you have to so channel side information is required most of the time. So your channel is estimated nevertheless in your communication systems, but even so it requires precise channel side information and if there is an error, your equalization would also have lots of errors, and it makes your system complex, right? So that is one way. So equalization is one way to combat what is called the intersymbol interference. And then another way of combating the intersymbol interference is that you divide this bandwidth of BS into small chunks, right? And you say that this is, if you have divided into capital N chunks, so you say that this is Bn, which is equals to 1 over n times your total bandwidth, right? And you say that this Bn is such that this Bn is less than the coherence bandwidth of the channel, right? So you divide it into multiple chunks, right? And then you transmit your signal in each of these BNs. So this would lead to what is called a multi-carrier modulation. So you would have a carrier F1, right? With a bandwidth of BN. You would have a carrier F2 with a bandwidth of BN. You would have a carrier Fn with a bandwidth of BN. Right? And hence, for example, your transmitted signal may look like S of t, can be look like summation I equals 1 to capital N, or from 0 to n minus 1, Si of t, G of t is pulse shaping times cosine of 2 pi Fit plus some phase for each of these. Right? So this is your signal to be transmitted. So this is the signal to be transmitted, and this is called multi-carrier modulated signal. Right? So you can see that you have multiple carriers here, right? Capital N to be precise. So you have capital N carriers, right? And then you would have each of these capital N carriers would have a bandwidth of Bn, and hence a total bandwidth of B is divided into capital N chunks and transmitted. Right? How would you receive this signal? If you have transmitted this signal, how would at the receiver side, what would you imply? So the receiver looks like simple enough on paper at least, right? So if you have received the signal S of t, so you would pass it through a filter bank. You would pass it through a filter which would be centered around f0 and would have a bandwidth of Bn, right? Similarly, you would have capital N of these filters, and once you have passed through this filter, you would carry out what is called the demodulation, and that would give you a parallel stream of R over N bits per second. And then you carry out what is called the parallel to serial conversion. And that would give you one stream of R bits per second. So you eventually transmit at a higher data rate of R bits per second, but dividing this data into smaller chunks of R over N bits per second that are transmitted over the multiple carriers or subcarriers which are called, right? And then at the receiving end you can demodulate all of those, and you can get the R bits per second data rate for each of these from this scheme. So it looks like a simple scheme, and the concept is simple enough. It was proposed in 1950s, but it was not used a lot for 20-30 years, mainly because each of these branches require independent RF chain. So they require a complete RF chain, right? So you need a filter and the demodulator, then you have to, this means you have to have a down converter here, and you require a precise phase lock loop here to demodulate, right? So although it looks simple enough on the paper, but practically speaking, it was really it is difficult to implement. Right? So it was not until we had what are the IDFT or IFFT implementation on the hardware. Right? So you have inverse discrete Fourier transform and inverse discrete Fourier transform algorithms that were implemented on the hardware, and they, in a way, gave gave an opportunity to implement these schemes using those FFT algorithms, fast Fourier transform algorithm, implemented on the hardware. So we'll be talking about that. So one thing that I want to talk about before we move in that direction is that the total bandwidth you require here is so typically, say 1 over Tn is your is the bandwidth required for a subcarrier, right? And you have capital N of those subcarriers, but you would always have a pulse shape, right? You would always have a pulse shape. Uh, so if you use a pulse shape of with a roll off factor of 0, then you don't have any problem there. So your bandwidth, total bandwidth B, would be equals to, as mentioned previously, n times Bn, which would be equals to B, which would be equals to n times 1 over Tn, and that is your total bandwidth. But what happens is that because of these pulse shapes, because you use a pulse shape, for example, a root raised cosine pulse shape with a roll-off vector of beta. This roll-off vector of beta adds additional bandwidth to your requirement, because this is also called, if beta is equals to 1, then it requires 100% more bandwidth than a sync pulse shape which requires which has a roll-off vector of 0, right? So that would mean that you can have a range of bandwidth from ranging from RB by 2, which is your uh, bandwidth, the minimum required bandwidth uh, for a transmission is RB by 2. That can be achieved using sync pulses, and you have a range of the bandwidth. So bandwidth is greater than RB by 2 and can be less than or equals to RB, which is the bandwidth you would achieve with the roll-off factor of 1. So if you have a beta equals to 1 or the roll-off factor of 1, you would have a bandwidth of RB, or if you have a roll-off factor of 0, you would have a bandwidth of RB by 2. So depending upon what roll-off factor you choose, your bandwidth would increase by a factor of 1 plus beta. So if you have previously the bandwidth of say RB by 2, if you use a roll factor of 0.5, it would be 1.5 times RB by 2, right? And if you have a roll factor of 1, it would be 2 times RB by 2. That would give you RB. Hence, for each pulse shape, so depending on what pulse shapes you have, you would have an increase in the bandwidth. So your total bandwidth required would be n times 1 plus beta over Tn, right? And that becomes a huge bandwidth, and that is the bandwidth when you are not overlapping your bands, right? So that means you have 1 plus beta, uh, you have this this is bandwidth of one subcarrier, this is bandwidth of second subcarrier, this is, for example, say f0, this is f1, right? And you have these non-overlapping bands, right? And the total bandwidth would be n times 1 plus beta over Tn, right? And so there is a way to show. So you can have this system where you can transmit this signal with overlapping bands. So if you make use of those overlapping bands, that means you have this f0. So you don't wait for this to end before you. So the only requirement is that these bands should be orthogonal to each other, right? So you can have overlapping bands, but they need to be orthogonal to each other. And thanks to the orthogonality property of these cosine signals or cosine carriers, you can prove that if you have this separation, so fi minus fj would be the minimum separation. So the question would be, what is the minimum separation that would give you um, orthogonal overlapping band. So you can prove that if fi minus fj is an integer multiples over tn, then you would have orthogonal subcarriers. So in other words, you can have a spacing of 1 over tn, and then you can overlap different frequency bands rather than waiting then for the entire subcarrier bandwidth to end uh, before making use of the bandwidth that is for the second subcarrier. You can overlap these subbands or subbands, and hence that would mean that if you have if you have this requirement, the total bandwidth requirement would change from uh, n times 1 plus beta over Tn to capital N over Tn, almost approximately, because you would still have this excess bandwidth requirement towards the very end, because this separation is, if this separation is 1 over Tn, you have n over Tn to be the total bandwidth, but towards the very end um, you would have these excess bandwidth. So this would be n plus beta, not n times beta over Tn. That would be approximately equals to n over Tn. So you can reduce the required bandwidth by making use of these overlapping bands, which, by the way, make use of the fact that these signals cosine of 2 pi uh, f1 t plus phi I phi 1 and cosine of 2 pi f2t plus phi 2. These two signals are orthogonal to each other. That means if you integrate this from 0 to capital T dt, and if f1 minus f2 is equals to 1 over tn, you can prove that these two signals would give you a dot product of 0. So this would be equals to 0. So this product would be equals to 0 if f1 minus f2 is equals to 1 over tn. So that means that if you have a separation of 1 over tn, you would have orthogonal subbands, and then you can reduce the required bandwidth for an OFDM symbol. But sorry, for a yes, because these are orthogonal symbols. So these can be called orthogonal frequency division multiple access symbols, uh, of orthogonal frequency division multiplexing symbol. So what you're making use of is that you have these independent or orthogonal subcarriers, and your bandwidth requirement has reduced from n plus 1 n times 1 plus beta over tn to n over tn. So that means your spectral efficiency has been improved, but as mentioned a while ago, that the key bottleneck in the usage of the multi-carrier modulation symbols were that you need a very complex receiver at the receiving end. Uh, at the receiving end, you need capital N RF chains. You need complete RF chains um, to detect this symbol. So the trade-off between the complexity and the benefit was not favorable until we had this hardware implementation of fast Fourier transform available. So we'll talk about that in the next video.